Good evening, welcome. Welcome to our discussion tonight, Surrogacy for Single People. A big welcome to everybody that's registered, participating in the event tonight. We are also going to be making the recording available online for those who aren't able to join us now. So thank you so much for viewing if you're viewing after tonight. Please do feel free to comment in the chat box. I'm keeping an eye on a couple of screens here, so I've got a chat box open, so please do submit your questions in there. Keep your video and audio off, and that will mean that we can focus on the speakers as they come up. So my name's Stephen. I'm one of the client managers at Brilliant Beginnings, which, if you didn't know, is a non-profit surrogacy agency, and we support surrogacy journeys for UK-based intended parents here in the UK, but also in the US and Canada as well, which are other destinations for surrogacy. First and foremost, I am a dad to 2 kids through surrogacy myself and egg donation here in the UK. So I hope with my personal experience, as well as my work at Brilliant Beginnings, I can give you a little bit of an overview for surrogacy, particularly for single people tonight. Also with me are Teresa and Wayne, so they're very central to this event as well. Teresa is a surrogate manager at Brilliant Beginnings, as well as being a surrogate herself. And Teresa speaks with the brilliant women that inquire with us considering becoming surrogates. And she's going to talk through her own experience as a surrogate. And we'll also be able to speak to what surrogates' perspectives are to helping single people and what she speaks to them about. Moving on to Wayne. Wayne's recent performance from Me to Us, which he'll talk to us about, was actually really the catalyst for having this event. And hopefully some of you that have registered and seen the links that we've been posting have been able to view that prior to the event. If you haven't, then that opportunity is still there, so really do take the opportunity. It's really a brilliant performance. Welcome Teresa and Wayne, and before we hear from them, I wanted to talk a little bit about surrogacy options for single intended parents, and also for women that are considering helping single people have a family by becoming a surrogate. So I think we've got a little bit of a mix of people that have registered, which is really brilliant, some intended parents, and I think some women that are considering surrogacy as well. So first and foremost, the good news is if you're new to exploring surrogacy, this is a really exciting time. Although surrogacy is quite complex, I know that when people go into surrogacy, they want to be well informed, they want to be well intentioned and well supported. And if all of that is the case, then surrogacy really can make for a really lovely and amazing journey as well. So more and more people are learning that surrogacy is an option for them, whether that be in the UK or another country, and that's really a massive step forward to where we were a few years ago. And if you've been looking into surrogacy for a little while, I hope that you still value our discussion. And as I said, please feel free to submit questions, which we'll get to at the end when everybody's spoken. So I think a good place to start is the law. And in the UK, the law recognises the person who gives birth to your baby as the legal parent. And if she is married, her husband or wife will be a legal parent too. To resolve this, there is a post-birth process, though, which is called the parental order. And the parental order grants legal parentage to intended parents and extinguishes that of the surrogate and her spouse if she has one. There are certain criteria that need to be met, and the court will also be keeping the welfare of the child as a central focus. Now, one of the good news stories is that the parental order, although it was initially only accessible to married heterosexual couples, was then extended to same-sex couples and anyone in an enduring relationship. But it wasn't until 2019 in January, following a legal challenge by our lovely sister organisation NGO Law, who were representing a single dad through surrogacy, that the law finally changed and recognised that it was discriminatory towards single people, and that they should also be able to, single parents through surrogacy should also be able to apply for the parental order. Whilst this has been a huge step forward, and Wayne's performance from me to us gives a first-hand account of the positive impact this has had on his journey so far, it's important to note that there are still criteria that require parents to have a genetic link to their baby. So this does mean that if a single man can't provide sperm or a single woman eggs, then unfortunately the parental order is still not an option. So really this is our next challenge, and we continue to try and push against these outdated concepts as much as possible. But for the time being, that does remain. So how does this enable surrogates? For surrogates, the change in the law to allow single people access to the parental order does mean that there is now a way for them to extinguish their legal responsibility if they're helping a single person. This is now very possible, and there's been lots of applications since the law changed in 2019 that have shown that it is straightforward. And a lot of people were already parents through surrogacy and were literally just waiting for the law change. Others were waiting to start their surrogacy journey until the law changed. So there's been some really good stories out of that. So legally, it is possible now for single intended parents and also for surrogates to help single people. Now, in terms of waiting times, this is still one of the big barriers in the UK, that there is still a shortage of surrogates coming forward in the UK to help any type of intended parents, whether they're single or not. And that means that there is potentially quite a long wait to be matched with a surrogate or to find a surrogate here in the UK. Doesn't mean that it's impossible though. And I know when my partner and I started out on our surrogacy journey, we really weren't sure where to start, but we did know that it was a long journey and it was going to potentially take quite a long time to get to our goal of having children and having a family. So there are a couple of ways that you can consider as a single person for how to find a surrogate here in the UK. You can inquire with a surrogacy organisation like Brilliant Beginnings, and we definitely help single people with our matching service. We're a full service organisation and aim to really support intended parents and surrogates at each and every stage of the journey. This can be particularly important with single intended parents or single surrogates that are going through surrogacy, so that support can often come in really valuable. We also work closely with NGO law, and we want to make sure that surrogacy journeys are really grounded in everyone being very well informed at the outset and knowing what to expect, being prepared, but also that really helps us to bring about really great matches. And that's one of the unique things about Brilliant Beginnings, is that our matching is one-to-one. Teresa will talk a little bit more about this in a moment. But the fact that we get to know our intended parents and surrogates means that we can try, and we usually do, make really good matches that are right for everybody involved. That's really valuable for you guys, because you know that from the outset, you're going to be finding it easier to get to know each other, and that will stand you in good stead throughout the rest of the journey as well. I know from my own surrogacy journey and the teams I've supported here at Brilliant Beginnings that a good match with good support really does set the foundations for the best surrogacy journeys. As well as having help from Brilliant Beginnings, you can also explore other options for finding a surrogate here in the UK, including Surrogacy UK, COTS, and there are also Facebook groups or websites, and you might consider speaking to friends and family members to help as well. There's lots of information, and it's good to work through what will work best for you. And so when the time comes and you're ready to move forward, you can make those informed choices. So what else is important for intended parents to know at an early stage in their journey? And if you're a man, as we were talking about earlier, the criteria around getting sperm checked is quite helpful and useful to do at an early stage, and you can speak to your local GP if that's an option, and speak to them about what you're planning. It is important that you're able, as a single man, to be able to conceive your child with your sperm for that genetic link. Single men will also need to be thinking about their egg donor and how to find her. And again, she could be a friend or could be someone that you find through a clinic. But the clinics do vary. Some clinics have waiting lists for egg donors, either through their egg sharing programs or donors who donate altruistically. And you can also consider egg banks as well. So unless the donor is known to you, the donation is anonymous, but it is important to note that information on donors can vary. So it's a really good idea to have a little think about the sort of information that you'd like about your donor when you're choosing. Likewise, if you're a single woman, then you'll obviously need to think similarly around sperm donors. And also, going back to that genetic link, whether you are able to provide eggs for a genetic link to your child. For both intended parents and surrogates, it's also important at an early stage to think about the family dynamics that you might be looking for on your surrogacy journey. So actually during the surrogacy journey and what that relationship between intended parents and surrogates looks like, but also after. So when baby has actually arrived, lots of people focus quite a lot on how that looks like during the journey, but they don't really think about, okay, once baby is here, what does that look like? Do we stay in touch? The common thing for most people to do is to really form a really lovely relationship, but that does look different for everyone, and you need to be clear from the outset whether you're going to be in contact daily, weekly, or whether that's a little bit looser, and you'll realize that you've got your own lives to be getting on with as well. Similarly, around sort of attendance at scans, involvement in the pregnancy, going along to clinics when you're able to, and the restrictions around coronavirus are a little bit looser. How involved are you in going to be in all of that? This is key for us at Brilliant Beginnings, because we want to make sure that when we're looking at matches between surrogates and intended parents, that those sort of thoughts are as aligned as possible. Many people go into that very flexibly, but others have quite specific ideas. And for us, it's about making sure that that's as close as possible. You'll also want to familiarise yourself with the legal process. Obviously, I've touched on that, but it's worth having a proper look at that and making sure that you're clear on the legal routes to resolving legal parentage. And there's loads of information on our sister organisation's website, NGA Law, so please have a look at that. Or you can contact and speak with them directly, and they can give you some bespoke advice to your own situation. Now, if you're a woman considering becoming a surrogate, Teresa's going to talk a little bit more about the things to keep in mind in a moment. But the key takeaway that I want for you to have is that you can help anyone. You can help complete all types of families: gay, straight, transgender, single, or couple. And for us at Brilliant Beginnings, we want to explore that. And many people have quite a specific idea about who they want to help. Others are very open. And it's often about the experience that a surrogate has had to actually prompt her to look into surrogacy, that she might want to continue to replicate that and find intended parents similar. So to give you a broad idea of costs, just to round up, it would be sensible for intended parents to budget between 10 to even 60,000 in the UK, taking into account clinical fees, surrogate expenses, legal fees, travel and accommodation, and agency fees if you're having help. And the wide variety of cost in there is because surrogacy journeys are so unique that it's really very difficult to sort of say what the average is for any given scenario. So that's a good idea to have sort of that idea of a range, but your specific circumstances will obviously be to you. A surrogate, however, it's important to note, should never be out of pocket, and it's the intended parent's responsibility to make sure that she isn't. And we'll also be making sure at Brilliant Beginnings that we're supporting that and making sure that that's very clear from the outset. So that's a little bit about the UK. I'd like to just talk a little bit about surrogacy options overseas as well, because that's one of the areas that we help, and we see a lot of single people go abroad for surrogacy. And there's some specific reasons for that, which I'll talk about. The two destinations are really the US and Canada. So the US is popular because it's well regulated, it's an established destination for surrogacy. There are agencies, attorneys and clinics, and they've got lots of experience. And surrogacy progresses for intended parents with reasonable certainty, and also offers lots of options. Surrogacy law is actually on a state-by-state basis, so it does vary a little bit between the states. So it would be important to just make sure that your specific circumstances are conducive to the law in that particular state. But a good surrogacy agency is obviously only going to be matching you with surrogates in those sorts of states. You also have legally binding contracts in the US, and as an intended parent, you have the advantage in the US that you will be on the US birth certificate as the parent. The surrogate will never be on there. So this offers quite a lot of legal certainty for many people who are a little bit uncertain on the UK framework as it is at the moment. The other advantage in the US is that there's really no shortage of surrogates. So whereas the wait in the UK is very unpredictable for a surrogate, in the US you could be matched very quickly, sometimes from a few weeks from making contact with a surrogacy agency, but more commonly about 4 to 6 months. And the surrogates that are you as intended parents are coming through are going to be fully screened and well prepared, much like we do at Brilliant Beginnings. Although the agencies do vary a little bit, so it'd be quite important just to explore that before setting out. The downside of the US, obviously, apart from the distance and the remoteness of the surrogacy journey, is that for many intended parents, the costs are really quite prohibitive. So an estimated budget would be between 100,000 at the very, very low end, £100,000, and up to £250,000 if you were to conceive twins. And again, much like the UK, there's lots of variables in there. And bear in mind that the UK legal framework does still apply. So when you come back to the UK, you would be looking to go through and apply for the parental order post-birth. It's worth mentioning Canada as well, because it is a destination that we help intended parents in, and we support Canada because it has an altruistic framework similar to the UK. Surrogates are only paid compensation, but unlike the UK, surrogate contracts are legally enforceable. And that means that there's some legal certainty around there. Also, intended parents will be on the birth certificate, much like in the US. So when your baby is born in Canada, the baby will be entitled to a Canadian birth certificate, and you would travel back on a Canadian passport for your baby. Again, I mean, in terms of wait times, they can be a little bit better, more predictable than the UK, but there's not a huge amount of difference there. So apart from the legal side of things, Canada offers some positives over the UK, but it's really specific to you as to whether it's going to be something to explore further. For a surrogacy journey in Canada, you would expect a budget sort of £70,000 to £100,000. So it's a lot cheaper than the US, but more expensive than the UK. There are other destinations for surrogacy that are always cropping up. Naturally, we feel that those destinations should really be explored properly, but they come with a lot of risk because potentially they close down when without notice, and this can often mean that people are left in limbo, or potentially with embryos and surrogates that they cannot get access to easily. If you are going to be looking at as an intended parent, a surrogacy journey in an unregulated destination, then it would be really key to have some legal advice around that. So if you did want to find out a little bit more, just to say we are holding a US event tomorrow. If you're viewing this on Monday, the 30th of November, we have a US event tomorrow on the 1st of December, which will talk a little bit more about surrogacy in the US. So good news is there's definitely options for single people here in the UK and also abroad. Very happy to answer questions towards the end. But now I really want to hand over to Teresa. Being a surrogate manager and also a surrogate herself, Teresa is the first port of call for women considering becoming surrogates with Brilliant Beginnings or not. And she is going to talk a little bit more about her journey, her experience, and the support and community our surrogates have here at Brilliant Beginnings for you now. Teresa?
Okay, thanks, Stephen. What a lovely introduction. I now have to live up to that. So yeah, my name's Teresa, but most people who come into contact with me just call me T. It's much easier to remember. So if we do ever meet, that'll be fine. My surrogacy journey started quite a while ago, actually, long before I worked for Brilliant Beginnings, and I had a whole different life as a teacher, teaching teenagers vocational business, which is not very exciting at all. And like many surrogates that I meet and speak to, my journey started when my brother, who is very dear to me, was struggling to create his own family with his wife. And that is something we hear from a lot of surrogates, that they know somebody, a very close friend or a family member, that is struggling to create their family. And for me, it was my brother. Luckily and happily, he didn't actually need my help. They did find other ways to have their own children, but that feeling kind of stuck with me, that, you know, I could help somebody. I had carried my own children very well. I had very good pregnancies and labours, and so I knew that this was something that I could do. So I started to look into surrogacy, and I took a long time to look into it. I took about a year of kind of doing my own research in the background, and thinking about my different options before I actually made any contact with any of the UK agencies. And for me, Brilliant Beginnings was the one that really stuck out. So that was way back in 2015, so some time ago. And they took me through the screening process. We had lots and lots of lovely chats and meetings, and there were lots of stages that I went through. And for me, that really, really worked. And I will talk to you a bit more about our screening in a moment. I wanted that full support. I was going into a journey at a stage in my life that I, despite my research, didn't really know a huge amount about. You know, I'd never met another surrogate to ask them what the experience would be like. So I really wanted to go with an organisation that could hold my hand all the way through. And I did feel like Brilliant Beginnings gave that to me. So I went through the screening process. I was matched with a lovely couple, and I started to have treatment after we'd got to know each other for a while. We did have 2 failed cycles of IVF, which is really, really normal with IVF treatment as well. And we were really, really lucky that on the 3rd cycle, we did fall pregnant. And because we had 2 embryos put in, lucky me, both of them stuck. So I ended up carrying twins and delivering beautiful twins, a boy and a girl, in October of 2017. So they are 3 years old now and growing into amazing little people as well. And that's something that I really treasure as well, is that I still get to see them. I'm seeing them grow up. I'm seeing this family grow as a unit as well. You know, I knew the intended parents before these babies come along. So it was really nice for me always to see how this family is growing and changing. Since that first journey, I felt like actually I wasn't really done. I did play around with the idea for a little while of having more children for myself, but my partner and I ultimately decided that that wasn't really for us. But I wasn't done being pregnant, and I didn't want that to be my last experience of pregnancy. So I'm back for my second journey. I came back to Brilliant Beginnings, and they matched me again with a new couple this time. And so I think that's a real testament to the work that they put in as well, in that they have managed to match me twice with 2 different couples, and they have done a great job both times. And so we are right kind of in the middle of the journey now with my second couple, and I don't mind telling you that I'm in the very early stages of a pregnancy. The first cycle of IVF wasn't successful, but this second cycle seems to have gone really well, and we've got our scan this Friday as well. So that's really, really exciting as well. And sort of, I think from my experience of carrying the twins and delivering the twins, and my interactions with the hospitals and the health trusts and stuff, it made me really want to do more to support other women like me, and to help build a community of women like me as well. Like I say, you don't often meet other surrogates, you know, standing in the line at the supermarket and things like that. So I did kind of raise the idea with Brilliant Beginnings, you know, that if they ever did think about sort of creating a role or having a role for me, then that would be something that I would be interested in. And you know, serendipity took over, and they have evolved, and the role of the surrogate manager is something that they have kind of added on to the business. And so I came into being a surrogate manager this year, but it does already feel like, you know, I know the team, I know everybody really, really well. I'd like to think I've slotted in really well with everyone. And I left my old life behind as a teacher, and I've started on this brand new journey of being a surrogate manager. And my role as a surrogate manager is, as Stephen said, to be kind of the first point of contact for any woman that is interested in surrogacy. So We get inquiries in lots of different ways. Women might inquire via our website or via our Facebook groups as well, and we will respond to any inquiry. So whether that is a woman that is very, very sure that she wants to come on with Brilliant Beginnings and wants to begin the screening process and have her journey with us, or if she just is in those very early stages and just wants more information about surrogacy and what her options are, we will respond to all of those inquiries. A surrogacy journey really starts from the point that a woman has made an application to come into the screening process and to start her journey. And we always say that it is a surrogate-led journey, so nothing is going to happen until she feels like she's ready to take that step. You know, I can't make these women fill out application forms, so I would love to help them write them out and get more in, and we do have some great numbers coming through, but the women need to be ready to start that journey. And what we often find is that once they are ready to make that commitment and to start that journey, then they're raring to go. And these women tend to be very headstrong. They know their minds, they know what they want, and they go for things when they're ready to go for them. So once we've got the application form, we can then start taking them through our screening process, which at Brilliant Beginnings, it is very robust, and it isn't like what other surrogates might experience at some of the other agencies. But like I said before, for me and for many other women, that level of support and those stages of screening are actually really comforting for us, and they give us confidence that we are really being looked after. And we do have various stages of the screening process. Some of the key ones, which I think Stephen touched on before as well, is having lots and lots of conversations with the surrogate about what kind of journey does she want to have. You know, when she imagines helping people to create their family, who are these people that she is imagining? If she could have a mental image of them, you know, is she thinking of a couple or a single person? Does she want to, you know, help a straight person or a gay person or somebody that is transgender? And there are lots of other things that we talk to them about as well. And it's not ever with the view of trying to shape a woman's preferences or change her mind or anything. You know, it's making sure that the decisions that she makes feel comfortable for her, and that she's confident that those decisions are going to give her the best journey, because this is her journey as well. And we want her to look back on this as one of the best things that she's ever done with her life. So that's one of the big things that we do as part of our screening, is to have those conversations and let her explore her feelings around who she will help, and who she would like to help, and what kind of relationship does she want to have with this person or these people, and how would she see that relation evolving through different stages of the journey as well. You know, when you're in a journey and you're matched with intended parents, then the communication can be quite active, it can be quite intense, there's lots going on, there's lots of enjoyment and excitement, and you know, lots of changes all the time. And then obviously there are other times sort of post-delivery, as the intended parents are getting to grips with raising baby, the surrogate goes back to raising her own family, and that relationship changes slightly. And so getting her thoughts about what does that look like to her, what feels comfortable for her, you know, does she want to continue to have communication with them and to see these little people grow, or is she happy for them to go off and kind of start to have their own lives, you know? Another really key thing, which Stephen also touched on as well, that we talk to the surrogates about, are their expenses. And money is one of those topics that nobody really likes to talk about, but it is really important. As surrogates, we are already mothers, and so it's very easy for us to kind of turn around and say, oh, but it doesn't cost me anything, because we're so used to just absorbing the cost with our own children. But actually, pregnancy, delivery, recovery from a pregnancy does cost money. You know, having to buy maternity clothes does cost money. And though some of us may have held on to maternity clothes from previous pregnancies, when you fall pregnant with twins and you're twice the size that you thought you were going to be, that's a whole different ballgame. You know, buying pregnancy vitamins and medication costs money as well. Eating more food or eating special food to give yourself the best diet and to have the best nutrients going to the baby costs money as well. Traveling to appointments, all of these things do need to be considered, and it is fair and it is right that a surrogate is compensated for those costs that come up throughout the treatment and the pregnancy and delivery, so that she's never out of pocket, so that she is never kind of worrying about having to cover the cost of anything, and so that ultimately it also doesn't taint that journey. You know, we don't want anybody with any kind of niggling doubts and wishing, oh, I should have actually said about this, or I wish that I had brought this up. My role is absolutely not to tell a surrogate what her expenses are. That's not what we do, because each surrogate is different. So my role is to let her look at her own budget and her, you know, living expenses and what kind of costs she incurred with her own pregnancies, and give her the tools that she needs to get awareness about what those expenses might look like for a surrogacy journey, so that she can kind of figure that out in her mind, and kind of provide us with an expenses breakdown that she thinks truly does reflect her situation. And like I say, it's different for every woman. I have 2 children, so my expenses might be different to somebody who only has 1, or somebody who already has 4 children of their own. I live in the southeast of England, so some of my expenses are going to be different to a woman who maybe lives in the north of England as well. And all of these things need to be considered. So no 2 women are exactly the same, and their expenses will reflect that as well. I think on the one of the things that I did want to say is that on the plus side, we have had some really good positive numbers of women making inquiries, and we have had women putting in applications to start a surrogacy journey. So there definitely is movement within the UK and within Brilliant Beginnings. People going into lockdown doesn't seem to have slowed anything down in that respect, and I have happily been very busy these last few months since joining the team. So that, I think, is something that is really positive. If there was ever going to be anything positive that came out of the national lockdown, this is something that we can chalk up to a positive experience, that there are surrogates out there are women out there that are interested, and there is movement in the industry as well of people coming through. And with the women that we're seeing coming through, our application is, like our screening process, quite robust, and we do start those conversations about intended parents quite early on. And I know since I've joined the team, with the applications that we've got coming in, lots and lots of our women are happy to help a single person, and they are happy to consider helping a single intended parent, either because they are a single woman themselves, so they know what it's like to raise a child by themselves, and they know that that is totally possible, or, which is the case, I think, for everybody, we all know somebody that is a single parent, that is an amazing parent, that does an excellent job, and some single parents that I know have got loads of children and do an amazing job as well. And so that in mind, I think that a lot of these women are opening up their hearts to the concept that, you know, different families and blended families and different family structures is absolutely fine, you know, and your marital status or your relationship status doesn't define what kind of parent you would be. So we are definitely seeing interest from women to make consideration for helping single people as well, which is really good. And as I touched on before, we do have some surrogates that are single women themselves. All of our surrogates are mothers, so they have all had children previous to coming to surrogacy. That is one of our criteria. So for a lot of these women, it is that they have had their children and then their relationships have broken down somewhere along the way. And they come with all sorts of backgrounds. Some of them are still very amicable with their ex-partners or their ex-husbands, and some of them draw support from their family and friends. The one thing that we are very kind of clear about with our surrogates, which I think is good advice for everyone, is that every surrogate throughout her journey should have at least one person, the more the merrier, but they should have at least one person that is their main supporter, that is a person that is going to stand there with them throughout the entire journey, that is going to offer practical support, childcare support, running out for Chinese food at midnight when they're pregnant and they can't do it themselves, you know, and also that really crucial emotional support throughout the journey, because there can be some ups and downs, you know, like I say, it's really common for IVF to not work the first time, and if you're really hopeful that it will and then it's not, how do you deal with that? having support is really important. And that main supporter might be the person that's with them in the room when they deliver as well. And I think that that's really good advice for everyone. Nobody should enter into something like this kind of by themselves. It's really good to have a support network around you of people that kind of not only get what you're doing, but they really do support it, and they really want to see this go well for you, and they want to be there cheering you on from the sidelines as much as they can, because there are going to be times when you want to be able to, you know, talk about the little milestones and the wins that you've had, and there'll be times when you want to be able to, you know, take a break and have a rest, and you need people around you to be able to do that as well. So that is something that we insist on for all of our surrogates, and it could be anybody. We have surrogates that are married but will still choose a mum or a sister or a best friend as their main supporter, not because their partners aren't supportive, but because for them it makes sense for their partners to look after the children, take that stress away from them, and they'll have somebody else that is just as close to them that will be there and offer that extra support that they need as well. And I would suggest, like I say, for anyone to draw on that. It doesn't really matter who the main supporter is. It could be your best friend, your sister, you know, your brother, your mum, your dad, but it's really good to have somebody there for you. And I feel now like I have spoken far too much. So Stephen, feel free to tell me if I haven't covered anything.
No, that's great, T. I mean, it goes without saying. I mean, without women like you and other surrogates, and women even considering surrogacy, none of this is even possible. So, I mean, yeah, very, very amazing to hear your perspective, and really positive that I think from the inquiries coming through that there's really no barrier from a single person's perspective. Really, the surrogates are very open to considering that, but everyone's journey is unique. So, and I think we'll open up to some questions afterwards. Thank you. Now, handing over to Wayne Jackson, who is going to talk a little bit more about From Me to Us, which, as I said at the beginning, was a catalyst for all of this, and to sort of really have a little bit of an event just focusing on single surrogacy and the fact that it is possible. So it'd be really great, Wayne, if you could tell us a little bit more about From Me to Us and your own journey and the writing and performance that you've gone through in that. That'd be really, really great. Thanks.
Thank you. Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for hosting this as well, Stephen, and for speaking to you. Really appreciate it. I guess the thing for me is that I'm a theatre maker, and when this happened, it made sense for me to translate my experience, my thinking, everything that was happening into some kind of performance. And what we've created is a piece of work that's just about an hour in length, supported by Arts Council England, and Contact is a theatre here in Manchester, and the guys at Brilliant Beginnings, and a producing company called Word of Warning and Herb. And what they've been able to support me to create is a piece of work that I think documents not only my experience and my journey and where I am and what I'm doing, but this idea of a social change, of something happening here in England that I wasn't even really aware of. On top of other people's stories, I was really keen to have this piece of work that didn't just speak about me and what I was doing. And although it was quite difficult to find other men that had gone through the process, I found two who became kind of bookends for me at this performance. And someone that had already gone through the experience pre the change in law, and someone that was thinking about starting it, so the early stages of it. And then there was kind of my story that fits in the middle somewhere, which, in order to try and make sense of what it is and where I am and where I've come from, it's really difficult. I say in the performance that I can't remember the time or the where I was when I realized that I wanted to have children, but it became this feeling, this awareness that just kind of started to grow. And it was when I was completing my PhD back in 2018 that I kind of realized that there was something else that I needed to do. There's something that I'm missing. There's another step. There's a stage. What's next in my journey and what I'm doing? And I'm a single gay man, and it just hasn't happened that I've found someone that I'm in a relationship with. I guess I started to balance out what was a priority for me at that point of time, and came to the realization that actually being a parent kind of outweighed the idea of finding someone to settle down with. And that was quite a big realization to have. Spares on this idea of what happens next and what do I do about this understanding. And it was complete serendipity that these kind of conversations we're having with one of my friends who I've known for years, who had recently been into a clinic to try and donate some of her eggs. And I found this whole idea fascinating, that there was someone there that was willing to do that for somebody else, to support them in such a way. And all of the stories that T's just been talking about, and the importance of surrogates in these stories. And kind of conversations became organic about the possibility that you could do something for me. And the more we got talking, the more we realized that she was as interested in that possibility as I was. And I think that's the first kind of turning point, that you realize something could be possible then, especially when you've got someone else who is doing something so huge in their lives for you, with such assurance and certainty that you would be okay in the role of a parent. That kind of settles any anxiety or concern of what you're going on to do, I guess, as well. And then we were having these conversations, as it happens, at the beginning of 2019. And when we kind of made the decision that this could be something that we wanted to go and look at and explore, we got a meeting at the clinic, and they told us that until recently, legally, things had changed, and the idea of me having a parental order and having birth certificate and being the legal parent of a child wasn't possible until I think it was about February or March time that we went. So they were saying like weeks ago, this had just changed. And we were just amazed that this was even, I couldn't work out at that time whether I was surprised that I didn't know that surrogacy would have ever been an option for me as a single person, or surprised that the idea of surrogacy wasn't a legal option for me. I couldn't work out where I was with that, but I knew that I wanted to do something about it. And that's where kind of making the work and making a piece of theatre originally. It was supposed to be a show that would open in July, but then COVID came and ruined things. So we changed it to a performance video. But I think actually that's worked out as being quite advantageous, because it means that we're able to reach more people than we would have done if it was in a theatre piece. So we've got this work that is now free online that I'm trying to get out to as many people as possible, to start that conversation about parenthood and 2020 and single people, what's possible, what's not possible. Because I didn't know. And I think, well, I don't know. I wonder whether if I had have known about this before, years before, whether it would change, or whether it's just circumstance that makes it the right time for me. But the one thing that I've really been aware of about my journey and where I am with it is that I've never been as certain of something that it really feels as though I've not really made any decisions about. And what I mean by that is there's never been a point where I've sat down and had a real kind of thought process or discussion about what I'm going to do. I've always known that that's what I was going to do. As soon as the possibility came up, there was something that just felt like, this is right for me. This is what I need to do. This is what I want to do. So that idea of the potential of it being before, I don't think really makes sense to me, because I don't think I was in the right place to do that. Whether that be financially, whether that be educationally, whether that just be kind of mentally, I guess, for me. So we started the process. Well, we very first went for our first meeting in March of 2019, shortly after the change in law. And things kind of developed. We had a lot of amendments to the process, shall we say, because it was new for a single parent at that time, especially for the clinic that I was working with. But we're at the stage now where COVID's kind of put us back, but we are hoping that, all being well, we will have our first transfer next week. So we're in that really exciting stage of possibilities, and it's something that T said before about expectation. And there's a line in my show which kind of sums everything up for me. And that's that I don't have any expectations. And I think that's a really important place for me to be in. I think it works with the way in which I kind of are able to compartmentalize things and kind of detach myself slightly from what's going on. And to be fair, I think making the piece of work really helped for me to have something to focus on whilst all of this was happening. But there's hope, and I hope that things work, and I hope that it goes in the way in which we are, but I don't expect it to. And I think that's really important for me to have that. So I don't look at time plans. I don't have this idea of when a child will be here. I just know that I'm in this process, which started in March 2019. It's now November still, almost, only just December 2020, and we're just still working on the possibility that this might be something that happens in the future. I guess I would just like to say on that note, just before we move on to if anyone's got any specific questions about things, that this is kind of like a shameless plug for the performance, but if you've not seen it, or if you have, please do share it with other people that you think would appreciate it or are interested in it. And there's lots of people I speak to that just aren't even looking at single parent surrogacy or surrogacy full stop, that have found a way into the performance about ideas of parenthood and imagining this idea of children and connecting it back to your past as well. There's something in the piece that I do that is about looking back in order to look forward. So please do share it with everyone. If you want any more information about me or my work, my website is waynestephenjackson.co.uk, and you can find out all of my past work on there as well. But I think the main thing that I want from this piece, as well as it being a documentation for me and hopefully my future child, is the idea of it being a way of starting conversations and discussions about parenthood in 2020, what that means, what is possible, and who it's possible for. And I think at this stage, it's for anyone that wants to be a parent, there are ways and means of being able to do that now, which is just incredible.
Yeah, I mean, I think I agree with you on the themes and some of the things that run through your performance, that they really do translate. It's not just about being a single parent, they're translatable across any. I mean, I connected with quite a few of the bits in there as a parent with a partner. It's that sort of drive to have a child is something that is in a lot of people, and those emotions really do transcend all of us. And I think it was interesting to hear about your expectations, and that for you, you're really good at managing those, and that's by having not probably very many. But I think it's important to say, and as an intended parent, it's important to say that can vary quite significantly. And for many people, it can be very difficult to manage expectations. And depending on how they've come to surrogacy, sometimes it might have been on a very, very long journey for exploring their own fertility to get to that point. And really, once they get to surrogacy, they're hoping that this is going to be sort of not necessarily a quick route, but an easy route then for them to achieve their dreams. And actually, it still can be very difficult. And it even comes down to things like embryo transfers. And T was mentioning about, okay, sometimes it doesn't happen the first time, and there's all these steps along the way. So, I mean, certainly for me, as someone who works in surrogacy, but also as someone who has children through surrogacy, when I'm asked about sort of the main piece of advice I'd give to people, to intended parents and surrogates embarking on surrogacy, is really try and manage your own expectations about when things are going to happen, when you're going to be successful about things, because that can sometimes mean you're setting yourself up for failure, which is not good. And there's things that are outside anybody's control. Thank you very much. And as Wayne said, I think if anybody hasn't had the opportunity to view the performance, there's links, and what we'll do is, for everybody that has registered, we'll send out an email just with that link again, so you can click on that, and when we post this recording on social media, we'll make sure that that link is in there as well. I'd be interested, Wayne, just to you mentioned a little bit about how coronavirus has sort of impacted your journey, and whether you feel like, oh, in a different world, things would have been different, particularly in a clinic, and what you think would have been better if possible.
Yeah, I think, to be fair, my experience has been that the clinic have just been incredible at trying to maintain as much as they could through the pandemic. I think for me, the main effect has been time. So we were where we are now. We were projected to be at that same stage around June. So around 6 months or so, it's kind of set us back in terms of that. But the main thing is, I guess, what's going to be happening next. So I think that's where I'm going to feel it much more than what's happened already. So, for example, I can't be there for the transfer. If that takes place next week, I can't be there for that. We can, with my surrogate, I can log in with a phone conversation or a FaceTime chat, but I can't be there physically. And I start to now, because I do kind of compartmentalize things and don't project and expect what happens next. I'm now starting to slowly but surely look at what that means for the future, and when she's pregnant, what does that mean in terms of me being able to see her and hear this, be there for appointments and things. I guess that's something that's a question mark currently due to COVID. But on that note as well, I'm really aware that I'm in a really lucky position, because my surrogate is a long-term friend of mine. So I've not felt that I guess confusion or pressure or uncertainty about that relationship with the surrogate, because it's already established and it's already there. So I know that whatever COVID throws at us, Ashley and myself on this journey, we're going to be working together to make sure that it's as good as it can be. And I think the thing with COVID, or anything that comes in the way of the process, all it's about is the uncertainty of what that means for you and your relationship, doesn't it? And if you've got a great relationship with a surrogate, and you've got the support of a charity such as Brilliant Beginnings, or whoever it is that you're working with, then you've got that knowledge that you're supported in that, and you're not kind of left out of things, I guess, of the uncertainty, because it's going to be uncertain for everybody. We're as we all know, this has been going on for best part of a year now, so we know what that means, and we know that things will be different. As long as we're aware of that, I think we can manage the situation better.
Yeah. And aside from your experience with the clinic around coronavirus, is there anything that you think that would be better approached for you as a single person? Because they're probably very geared up. Most clinics are very used to seeing sort of partners, couples coming through.
Yeah, the clinics are brilliant, because they work with you on that journey and they get to know you. There's a lot of things that you have to do with them, the counselling sessions, the discussions with the doctors, for example. So they know you and they know what you're doing. So the tailored element of the journeys will always be or feel individual to you. The one thing that I have noticed is, just because it's so new and fresh, is the paperwork. So anytime I've had to fill something in, it's all been geared towards couples. So it feels very strange to have to strike through sections of paperwork that you're filling in, and consent forms that you're doing, which aren't really conducive or reflective of your position and what you're doing. So I think that will change, because I think it will just take time and experience of people going through this. But that's the one thing that I've noticed is the paperwork side of it, which isn't really reflective of my journey.
Yeah, and the clinics do vary significantly. And I think actually another piece of advice when you're starting out on surrogacy, and I spoke about sort of exploring if you needed the help of an egg donor, the different ways the clinics approach that and the different information you might have. But it's also talking to them about, okay, what's the surrogacy experience, all those sorts of questions, and just meeting with some of the key members of the team and becoming comfortable with them, I think is going to be really important. Tia, I'm just interested, I know you did touch on it, but in terms of the women that you speak to that are considering becoming surrogates, do you think that there is any barrier now or resistance when you mention, okay, well, what about single people, what about helping a single intended parent?
No, I don't think that there is any kind of barrier or resistance. I do think that as with some other kind of aspects of intended parents that we bring up with surrogates, a single person maybe isn't something that they have necessarily thought about before, because they're, you know, it is much easier to just assume that, you know, when we talk about intended parents, that there are two of them, and so this is coming as a couple package. But like I say, as with many of the other things that we bring up with surrogates, you know, helping people that are transgender, or helping people of a different race, or within certain age categories, while it might be that they haven't thought about it before, it's definitely not necessarily something that is an exclusionary factor, which I think is really positive.
And how with women that are considering surrogacy that are single, what do you talk to them in terms of the support? We spoke about support, and that main person sort of helping a single person, whether that be a surrogate or an intended parent, through this journey.
Yeah, we do. So we do really try to make sure that we are emphasizing the importance of having somebody to support them through, but also the reality of what that support will look like, you know, so that it really is somebody that is, you know, a phone call away, that can help with things that maybe, you know, with the relationship that you currently have with them is not something that they might normally do, you know, like picking up your children, or doing your shopping, or coming with you to appointments and stuff like that. So we do try to make sure that they are really clear about what that support will look like, but to also think about some of the wider support that they might have, and some of the other kind of conversations and the questions that they might be getting from people within the different kind of layers of their circle as well, and how they can draw on support from multiple people as well, and that is quite a good thing. Another thing that we do try to also kind of make sure that our surrogates understand is that, of course, there is no problem with being a single mother or being a single person and having children and coming into a surrogacy journey, but to be really, really clear about what that means should you go on to meet somebody and think about starting a relationship, or actually starting a relationship at some point during the journey, and making sure that you are being transparent about what you're doing, making sure that this person that you bring into your life understands the practicalities of what that means, of having a new relationship while you're having treatment and while you're pregnant as a surrogate as well. And so we try to have some very honest conversations with the women about that new person as well.
Yeah. Okay. And Wayne, what do you think, if you were a single person sort of exploring surrogacy now, what would, at the very beginning of their journey, what would be your main piece of advice to take away?
I think for me, it's about finding the right relationship with whoever it is that you're working with, and that's based on trust. And to have the trust with people that you're on the journey with is by far the most important thing. I wouldn't be able to do this if I wasn't with Ashley and she wasn't on this journey with me, because what you find and what you learn through going through this is that there's people that are there to help you out, be it surrogates, be it people in charities or at the clinics, and even the solicitors that I was speaking to. They're there and they want to help you. They're there because they're as part of this, however small part of the journey as you are, and it kind of transcends you in a way. The importance of those relationships and that trust is so vital, because you feel like, and also your family and friends around you having their support as well, so that you don't feel like you're in this world. The single people if you are kind of, if you're like me and you're not single because you've had kind of a serious long failed relationship that's ended for whatever purpose, but you are single because that is kind of who you are, then that's been a way of life for me. I've been single and in and out of small scale relationships, but ultimately single, and so I learned to live with and for myself, and it's wholly kind of selfish in the way in which I exist. So to begin that journey, to know that that's going to be changing fundamentally, but also being able to understand that there are people out there to support you on that journey is really crucial and important. So for me, understanding that foundation is really is the best thing that I was able to do, again, probably without even thinking about it, probably without even having any conscious decision for it. But if you don't have that, and you don't have trust of the people that you're in the journey with, then I can imagine it would be a very difficult place to navigate.
Yeah, I think that's it's a good note to end on. And I think the takeaway is that actually a lot of the people that are involved in surrogacy, although there is trust involved, the vast majority of people, whether that be organisations supporting intended parents and surrogates, intended parents or surrogates, their hearts are really in the right place. We all want to see and help to create babies, and that's really what it comes down to. And I think I just want to end on the note that, if anything, I hope this information is useful. And if you're a single person, whether that be a surrogate or an intended parent, that it's giving you an opportunity to get a bit more information and have a little bit of a think. But the main thing is that it is possible. And until recently it wasn't. And that's an amazing thing. It's a positive thing. And I think it shows that we're moving in the right direction. And I'm just very happy to have had Wayne and T here to speak about their own experiences, and hopefully it's been useful. And what we'll do is we'll post this up online, so if anyone thinks of a comment afterwards and wants to comment on the post or get in touch with us directly, then please do. And anyone watching this that hasn't seen From Me to Us, please click on the link as well. It's really well worth the watch.